maybe two generations. The generation of the youth of 1976 until 1994, and then we'll also talk a little bit about the generation of the born-frees, the 1994 upwards, and then we'll leave my 2000 a little bit alone. We know they're part of that generation of 1994 until where we are now. So, and we know that these youth, although they are shaped by different characteristics, and they're all coming from broad, diverse settings, right? I mean, even in this room, I can see some youth who are trying to figure out questions around education. You can see youth that are trying to figure out questions about work and employment. You can see youth that are trying to figure out proper questions about marriage, right? So there is just a youth, but there is also diversity in some of the things that runs in our mind. Maybe we can read this one, and then we'll share a little bit about it.
Although your reality is achieved by a broad diversity of circumstances, yet a desire to bring about constructive change and a capacity for meaningful service, both characteristic of your stage of life, are never limited to any race or nationality, not depending upon material means.
So with these differences, whether we are at school, whether we're failing a marriage, whether we're black, whether we're white, this stage of life is one that is special because I would be safe to say a significant number of youth are trying to figure out what can I do for my life, but also for the lives of those, maybe my family, and even some go to the extent of the lives of my community. But this question is a question that seems to naturally come to the minds of youth. So how can I contribute? So it's a special period in anyone's life. And I think the reason why I'm mentioning this is don't be shy to think about this question. I think it's a natural question, and it's a question that we will have with that discussion of saying, what are the forces around me and how I can respond to them. But to go back to these two generations, we'll talk a little bit about the struggle generation and some of their features. We know that they had a deep commitment to activism in social justice. And this deep commitment to activism in social justice was shaped by the reality of the time. There was injustice, there was inequality. And because of this natural urge to want to do something about the current stage in life, it then arose. And it seems like this natural urge is not so material, but rather spiritual quality. That each and every generation, given a particular time of your life, you will have this question. There are strong values which really connected. You know, some of these guys, when they live together, your uncles are here and talking together about the times and all that. And again, that was shaped by really this high sense of what their social forces was around them. And we know that many of them have become leaders in different spaces, society, building, what you call business, and so forth. So this was a specific time, specific realities, and we have moved on, we have progressed. And I think it's important that we appreciate it, that the forces that we face with now perhaps require a certain response from us as we then will explore what that response is and what it looks like within the context of the Bahá'í. Of course, we've got the born-frees, the selfie generation, and you know, with this selfie generation, there's really this strong sense of freedom and optimism. It's just, you know, this generation loves to have a good time. They love fun, right? And it's nothing bad. Really, a desire to really to experience joy and all that. It becomes a challenge when it's channeled in a way that becomes destructive to society. And in itself is not such a joy in itself is not a bad, but this generation really has optimism. And of course we know about this generation that there's a strong desire to progress economically, right? Everyone wants to progress materially and advance in that regard. Then we know, look at him, this high level of, he's probably talking to someone or preparing what he needs to share today. So technology is also part of it. But again, with whatever we have and whatever we experience, we know that it can either be channeled as a force for social good or a force for distraction. And what we try to do is to figure out how to build capacity in the youth together to be able to take these and channel them in a way that builds society. So this is the two generations. But we'll now focus on our times. Right? Our times are not. I think we have to appreciate that it's not easy being a youth at this time, particularly in South Africa. I think South Africa, it's not easy being you guys. Of course, it's not easy being everyone, but it's not easy. And some of the things we'll talk about, and these are things that potentially can derail us. These are things that potentially can steal what we have. These are, so in other words, we can just call them as forces, right? Which are not so we have high unemployment rate. You know, in South Africa they say there's about how much? 60 million, that's the population of South Africa, 60 or so million, and then of that 34% or so is youth. And then there's the level of unemployment is sort of fluctuates between 25 and 30%, but of those 40% of that number is unemployment. And they even now have a fancy term called is it NEET? I don't know if any of you guys have had this NEET, so that they regard youth as NEET, certain youth, so that they are neither in education. What is it? This education, employment or training, right? So we can just imagine the people not being either in education, employment, and training. What prospects? What is the sense of hope? Where do you get it? Where do you get it? So there is an appreciation that really poverty, we don't want to talk about it. We know it, we've experienced it. I'm sure a lot of people knows what it looks like. Substance abuse is something that we deal with on a daily basis. You know, and of late, mental issues, right? And created by all this confusion and so on. So this list is really long, but that's not the message for today. The message of today is one of hope. Because all these things, you know, the same way, in a way that there was a struggle against apartheid. In a way, these are the forces of our time. And as youth, there's a need to figure out how we navigate to win against some of these things. So they say, regardless of the social situation, whether it's poverty, whether it's unemployment, whether we're not going to school or we're not receiving training, young people aspire. Everyone has got some kind of aspiration. And this aspiration is from a spiritual perspective. We want to become better people. But also materially we want to do well in society. That's one characteristic of many, irrespective of race, irrespective of color, and so on. And there's also an acknowledgement that there's a lot of powers that you have, and channeling them is an important concern. For when these powers are not channeled, or they become misdirected or manipulated by negative forces in society, they cause a lot of pain in society. Right? And we see some of these powers. We see how really creative people, when they take their creativity and apply it in a negative way, use of criminal ideas come down to, and we see it in South Africa, new ways of stealing from people, and that comes from this power that people have, that they're creative. I think this creativity was going to be channeled elsewhere. It could become a source of really great social. So I guess also within this question of powers, it's on us to reflect what are my powers, what are the talents that I possess, and how do I channel them for a source of social. And so we're gonna. I think that sort of gives a general view in terms of some of the youth powers, the social realities that they exist in. We also have. I think I'm gonna be cautious, but I'm gonna mention this. We also have new guys, and maybe a few hundred more in South Africa who are alive with a vision of power. And it is a privilege to be alive with this vision. It's a vision of a unified world. It's a vision of really an empowered society that's able to take ownership of its material and spiritual progress. And you all are engaged in the institute process, right? I understand that some of you guys are here purely because of that. Talk about what the institute process fundamentally is. And it's a tool that is aimed at building your capacity for service, right? And it goes beyond that. It's a tool that the Universal House of Justice, they started, over the years, this institute have been called different things. At one point it was called an engine of growth, and then now it's called an instrument of limitless potentialities. So the potentialities that this tool or institute has for our lives, for our capacities to be able to respond to the social challenges and reality is plenty. Because at the core of this institute is an acknowledgement of our true identity as spiritual beings. Right? And what it then does, it helps us, through book one, understand some of these concepts. The betterment of the world can be accomplished through pure and good deeds, through commendable and seemly conduct. That is a very basic principle, but its implications in terms of how we live our lives and how we become a source for social good is quite profound. Truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. Without truthfulness, progress and success are impossible for any soul in all the worlds of God. Right? So through the institute, we learn this. Right? In book one, we learn this. In book two, we learn this capacity to have a meaningful conversation. Something that is missing in society. When people come together and you listen to what are we talking about? Right? You'll be shocked, you'll be surprised. Right? It's not things that are inspiring. It's maybe about somebody else, or it's maybe about a car that somebody has acquired, or it's about what book 2 helps us to do is to learn to have capacity to have conversations that elevate. Right? So in this institute process, that's what we learn as youth. And then you're going to go to book 3, and book 3 says, did you know that as a young person, you are able to contribute towards the education of others as well? You are able to educate contribute to the education of children. You are able to accompany children so that they learn spiritual qualities. So you've got this tool. I'm not going to talk about all the books. There's about 14 of them, so I'll take the whole fire to be able to do. But fundamentally, this tool of limitless possibilities, later on, it teaches us about the institution of family. Something that a lot of people are grappling with, society is grappling with now, in terms of how do we raise kids? How do we relate to one another as husband and wife? It also teaches us about the fund, about money. What is our relationship with money? What are the qualities of a generous heart? So, in that way, you can see like this tool of the institute process, how fundamentally as young people it can assist us to be able to contribute in these social forces that are there. So I think with that is really to encourage all of you guys to just continue to progress. I know Mama Uli is very passionate about the institute and doing the institute properly. And friends, it seems like with this tool, we are learning it's really potential to be able to raise up a generations of youth that are really strong and are able to really, you know these social forces, sometimes they get so strong that when they swallow us, it's just difficult to come out of it. And it's through service, we are told, that we really build the capacity and the resilience to be able to withstand some of these social forces. And in a way, the institute process, the tool, helps with that as well. So I think linked to the institute process is also, maybe not that, can you read the one at the bottom?
They understand that no deed in the world is nobler than service to the common good, that the highest righteousness is to arise and energetically devote themselves to the service of the masses.
But really at the core also what we're trying to figure out is this appreciation that all the things that we can do in the world, one that probably helps us fulfill our true identity as spiritual souls is service of others. And not just service, they talk about the concept of selfless service. So maybe So this idea of selfless service will also touch upon it, and then maybe we'll have some of the practical examples of some of the friends that are really learning how to accompany their communities. Of course, as we said earlier on, that naturally in the life of youth, they think about a number of things. They think about education, they think about work, leisure. But one thing that we're also learning about is this idea that really the way we think about all these things, we don't think about them in a fragmented way. We try to see how our lives become coherent. And I know it's a topic that it's easy to say, coherence, right? But then in practice, what does it mean? And in this process, we appreciate that when we approach our lives in a very disjointed view, it then leads to confusion. Should I study or should I serve? Should I do that junior youth group, or should I go play football? Yeah? Those are some of the questions. Should I, should I go and work, or should I go and dedicate myself to service someone? And I think what we are learning is that there's no need to fragment things. You can do things together. There's a need though for a particular way of seeing how our lives are structured, such that we live in a more coherent way. They say that failure to approach one's life as a coherent whole often breeds anxiety and confusion. And that through service, young people can learn to foster a life in which many aspects complement. That yes, you can go and play a soccer match. You can also go and animate at the same time that junior youth group. You can do well at school while you are doing all that. And you can also support your community efforts in all that. It doesn't have to be this or this or this or this. In our lives as youth, this is a special period where coherence, if we learn coherence, the benefits of it are going to go with us through adulthood. Whereas if there's a lot of fragmentation, what then happens is that we also take that into adulthood, and it often breeds, as it says, anxiety. It also breeds a lot of confusion. So these are some of now the questions that when now that we understand this life of service and how it can contribute towards youth making a positive change to society, how can the qualities of youth be invested in the process of community building? So these powers that we say that we have, these qualities, and there's some of the qualities include a natural attraction to duty. The sense of justice. When something is wrong, youth know. They will tell you that that's not fair. You are doing this, but here you are doing it. So you are saying this, but so that's a keen sense of justice that is there. And how do we then invest these to this process of social transformation? What is necessary to encourage them along the path of selfless service? We've just explored the role that selfless service plays in the life of youth. What is it that we can do to encourage more youth to participate in this life of selfless service? What are the moral, intellectual capacities that can best guide them? So, friends, these are questions, and questions that they don't have answers immediately. And I think what we then, the process that we're all busy with, engaging with youth and answering how can we contribute to society, part of it is thinking about some of these questions. And that's why I was saying it's a continuous learning process about these possibilities to serve. Anyone that says they've got a full answer to this, probably they are a bit far from the truth. There we go.